I figured I'd make a quick little video on my air filter setup that I made for my CS4910 Echo. It would also work with the 501 and uh, I forget which Shindaiwa model. But I really like the stock top, so I didn't want to build a big top. I wanted to kind of go as minimal as I could, so I ended up making this wedge. It uses a CS440, or I believe it's also like the 520 style filter, which is a little bit taller than the CS400 filter. Um, so this wedge is just merely to fit the filter under it. The top has got an offset hole in it just to kind of fit the geometry of everything. And then I made a boss on here that's oblonged to fit this so that it actually just kind of like lines up and sits on there and doesn't twist, so that everything lines up good. So I like these filters. There's about 3 times the surface area on this filter than there is on this filter. You can get the nylon mesh ones. I have one. They definitely work better and they're easier to clean in the field, but this is still something I prefer. And this ended up actually looking better than I thought. I kind of like it. Believe it or not, this filter has the same amount of runtime. It actually has less than this filter does, and that kind of shows why I did this, because when I cut a lot of really dry cedar or oak, no matter how sharp or fresh my chain is, I still get all this little really light fines off of it. So and they clog this up really fast. So this is what I came up with. And then this screw just holds this in place. It's still got a recess on it like the factory top has, but instead of this just like floating around when I'm changing the filter or something, that screw just holds it on. I really wanted to make sure and not decrease performance on this setup. My biggest thing was greater filtration, but I didn't want to kill performance. I really like this saw. It's got a great power to weight ratio. So I worked real hard to try to get a really smooth transition in here into really into the choke butterfly, because of the angle it's at and whatnot. I'll try to maybe show it. It's kind of hard, but the transition really turned out pretty good. A lot of trial and error there. I put a brass insert in the top so that it screws on nicely. And that's kind of all of it. A lot of R&D in it, as you can see. Box full of parts I tried. I even played with other filters. Husqvarna 545 Mark II filter, I think. Echo CS7310 filter that I cut apart. I was just trying to see. They're really tall. That kind of good old still filter that they put on a ton of models that's super easy to get. This one, I had no idea how big it was until I ordered it. This is a Dolmar Makita 5600 filter, I think. But definitely way too big. Kind of a cool filter, but way too big. So I ended up with this, and I'm pretty happy with it. It goes together super easy. You can put it on kind of in any fashion, and it just goes together. The tongue still clips in up here, screws on down. And there you go. So I like it. I think it kind of looks cool. I at first thought it was going to be really ugly. I was trying really hard to keep this wedge as minimal as absolutely possible, but then I kind of gave up on that just to make sure that the intake had better geometry and flow to it. I even put a little recess for the handle because it does get kind of close. So I'm happy with it. Did some test runs with this versus the stock filter. I did take video of it and timed it. Maybe I'll get around to loading some of those. This did outperform the stock filter by a couple of seconds minimum in each cut. I did have the stock filter a little rich once I went back and watched the videos, so that didn't help. And the chain is definitely not super sharp. But the one thing I really noticed with this is it feels like it put a lot more grunt into the saw. It feels like you can like kind of dog the saw in and actually put more pressure and really get it to eat. I'd love to run a more aggressive chain to see how it runs with this setup. I'd also like to just play with it more and see if I can keep it performing good. The only modifications are just to the fuel screws so that I can adjust them more, and the little aluminum muffler cap, and took out the O-ring. So that's it. Hopefully this answers a lot of questions about it. So here it is.